My name is Camila Foster. I'm 31, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. In my family, that title came with perks like control, logic, and reliability, but it also came with invisible chains. Chains made of unpaid debts, broken promises, and silent emotional labor. And yet, somehow, I'd always carried them willingly, until the day I received a message that stripped away any pretense of civility. It was a typical Thursday evening. Jason, my boyfriend, had just poured us each a glass of wine. I was scrolling through my phone when the family group chat lit up with a notification. The message was cold, mechanical, and brutally direct. Please come without your boyfriend. No greeting, no explanation, no softening of the blow. Just 5 words that made my chest hollow and my stomach knot in a strange, icy calm. I stared at the screen 3 times, convinced my eyes were playing tricks on me. Maybe autocorrect had sabotaged their message, some cruel joke in digital form. But no, it was deliberate. Jason peered over my shoulder, frowning. Who's that from? I handed him the phone. He read it, silent, and placed the device on the kitchen counter. He didn't flinch. He didn't scowl. He simply looked at me. His gaze said what I was feeling but hadn't allowed myself to admit. Shock, disbelief, and the faintest spark of anger. Well, he said finally, breaking the silence. I nodded. They meant it. Are you going to... His question trailed off, but I already knew my answer. I opened the chat, scrolled to the bottom, and tapped Leave Chat. I'm doing exactly what they asked, I said, voice calm, measured. I'm not bringing you. His eyes widened. You're going without me? No, I said, we're not going, at all. He exhaled slowly, a shadow of disappointment crossing his features. I didn't blame him. I felt it too. But I'd long since learned that in my family, standing up quietly was sometimes more powerful than confrontation. For months, I had been their wallet with no opinion. Every decision, every expense, every extravagant gesture, they looked at me as if my generosity was a birthright, not a choice. My younger sister, Isla, cried on FaceTime about how expensive everything was, and of course, everyone turned to me. You've always been the responsible one, Mom said, her voice syrupy with assumed gratitude. She's never asked for anything before, Dad added, patting her hand like I wasn't there. So, of course, I paid. The venue, the flowers, the live quartet, the photo booth, the 7-tier wedding cake, imported icing, the works, everything that screamed Instagram perfect celebration. I even paid extra to fix the details Ela had insisted were essential, like a custom veil adjustment for her first dress fitting. And still, they told me Jason wasn't welcome. For what? Because he didn't laugh at Isla's jokes? Because he refused to play the perfect boyfriend game? Or maybe it was because he had the audacity to ask a simple question at a dinner party. Do you even like Ela, or are you just afraid of her? Yes, that one probably did it. Jason didn't say a word. He simply held my hand and let me carry the anger for both of us. His calm had always been my anchor. I knew you'd pick me, he whispered later, his voice quiet but warm. But it still hurts. I nodded. Then we'll stay home, but I'm still contributing. He raised an eyebrow. You already gave them 22 grand. I did, I admitted, but there's one item I quietly revised. The wedding happened. Of course it did. It was flawless on the surface. Platinum accents, champagne fountains, guests in cream and blush, the kind of scene that looked like a Vogue editorial. Isla beamed in every photo. Tyler wore the appropriate empty smile, and my parents looked like they had raised royalty. Everything was perfect until the cake arrived. The centerpiece, the crown jewel, the 7-tier monstrosity of imported sugar, carefully arranged ivory roses and delicate gold filigree, and then chaos. My phone lit up like a fire alarm. Missed calls, texts, panicked emojis. I counted 143 missed calls in the span of 2 hours. From Mom, from Isla, from Tyler, from Aunt Martha, who once accused me of being cheap for bringing store-bought wine to Christmas. I didn't pick up. I poured myself a glass of bourbon, clinked it softly against Jason's glass, and muttered, Happy wedding day, Isla, $22,000. He smiled, not out of pride or schadenfreude, but because he understood. I sat back, thinking of all the years of silent sacrifice, covering Ela's rent when she crashed her car, funding her failed businesses, patching over her professional missteps. Every time I helped, she failed harder. And Caroline, Sorry, Jason, had seen it all. He had always warned me, always whispered truths I wasn't ready to hear. They don't respect you. They never have. That night I realized he was right, and something inside me shifted, calm, quiet, unshakable. I had played the part of perfect daughter for decades, but now I was ready to write my own rules. The next morning, the world outside our apartment felt absurdly normal, like nothing had happened. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, coffee smelled like safety, and Jason was in the kitchen, humming a tune as if the universe hadn't just tried to humiliate us both. But I couldn't forget. I never could. For years, I had been the family's invisible support system, the one who absorbed every financial and emotional hit without complaint. My parents had a way of praising my sister Isla for her emotional depth while expecting me to cover the fallout. "You're stable," Mom said as if it were a compliment. "You're the responsible one," Dad echoed, eyes misting with unspoken gratitude. And so I paid for everything. When Isla crashed her car texting at 18, I paid the deductible and comforted her while she blamed the sun. When she got fired from her first job for creative differences, I quietly paid her rent for 4 months. When she decided to start an Etsy business, I built her website, bought her overpriced, hand-glued inventory, and helped her navigate her first sales. Every failure was mine to fix. Every tear was mine to catch. And every thank you was carefully calibrated for her own advantage. Jason watched it all, always a quiet observer. "They don't see you," he'd whisper, "but I do, and I always will." He understood something my family never did. My patience wasn't weakness, it was preparation. The breaking point came quietly, in the middle of a family dinner. Isla had just finished one of her classic manipulations, throwing a faux tantrum over something trivial. My parents cooed over her, congratulated her for being so emotional, while I sat there absorbing their praise for her mistakes. Jason reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "It's always been you," he said softly, "and now it's your turn." I let his words sink in. Weeks before the big event, the family began making decisions without consulting me. Not accidentally, deliberately. Every phone call I wasn't included in, every text that said, "We know you're busy," was a reminder that my opinions were irrelevant, my contributions invisible. Hila was gleeful about it. "Oh, don't worry," she said over FaceTime, eyes sparkling with fake innocence. "We just made a few quick decisions, nothing major." Quick decisions that cost thousands. The champagne fountain locked in. Fire dancers booked for the after-party. The 7-tier cake with gold leaf, imported orchids, and enough sugar to feed an army. I smiled quietly, because who signed the checks? Me. It was during one of these planning weeks that I realized the universe had handed me the perfect opportunity, the perfect stage, and I intended to use it. There was one dinner that crystallized everything for me. Jason and I arrived with a peace offering. A hand-embroidered silk robe for Hila, something delicate, thoughtful, meant to show goodwill. She opened it, forced a smile, and muttered, "Oh, thanks. I already have 2 of these, but okay." Then, leaning close, she whispered, almost venomously, "At least you're good for something, I guess." Jason heard her. I felt him freeze next to me, fingers curling slightly around his wineglass. But he didn't speak. He never did. He knew the power of quiet support. I stood up, my napkin in hand. "Excuse me," I said. "I need some air." Mom raised her eyebrows. "Out?" "Yes," I said, and left the house, walking straight to my car and sitting there for an hour, breathing in the night, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my office, lights off, scrolling through receipts, invoices, and screenshots. I looked at the cake design file Isla had emailed, the one she thought would be the crowning jewel of her Instagram perfect celebration. Soft ivory, gold trim, sugar roses arranged with timeless elegance. The kind of perfection she demanded from everyone, but never created herself. I picked up the phone, calmly, quietly. I called the bakery. "Hi," I said. "I'd like to make a small adjustment." Jason came in later, noticing my smirk as I stared into my glass of bourbon. "What did you do?" he asked, suspicious but amused. I raised an eyebrow. "Who says I did anything? You only smile like that when you're hiding fire." He laughed softly and kissed my forehead. "You're terrifying," he said. And maybe I was. But the night before the event, as I watched Jason fold laundry in our apartment, I realized just how liberating it was to finally stop playing by their rules. Because for the first time, I wasn't just the responsible one. I was in control. The morning of the event, the city outside was drenched in golden light. Everything looked calm, orderly, as if the world had no idea of the storm about to hit inside a ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers and platinum accents. But I knew. I had always known. For months, I had quietly orchestrated my own version of perfection. Every detail of the celebration, the flowers, the music, the cake, was exactly what the family wanted, but with a subtle twist only I would understand. A twist that would expose the truth of their entitlement, arrogance, and complete lack of gratitude. Jason watched me move through our apartment, sipping coffee, reviewing invoices. He had always trusted me, even when I didn't trust myself. "You're calm," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Terrifyingly calm." "I'm focused," I replied, "and focused is power." He smiled faintly, but I could see the worry in his eyes. "Just don't go too far." I laughed softly, brushing his hand with mine. "Jason, this isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Subtle, poetic justice. You'll see." The plan hinged on appearances. Isla and Tyler had spent months crafting a perfect narrative for social media, a flawless wedding that screamed wealth, glamour, and family harmony. They expected me to be a spectator, a silent bank, a willing enabler, but I would be neither. The cake would arrive exactly as planned. 7 tiers, gold leaf, ivory roses, every detail in line with Isla's timeless elegance vision. Guests would see everything as perfect. Glittering lights, champagne flutes, live music. Behind the scenes, subtle adjustments I had arranged would turn the expected into the unforgettable. I couldn't resist a small smile as I pictured the moment of revelation, the looks on their faces, the confusion, the public realization that control was not theirs to wield. Weeks of planning, invoices, and whispered conversations with vendors led to this day. I had prepaid everything myself. No one in the family would know until it was too late. I wasn't just the silent benefactor anymore. I was the hidden author of chaos. As I drove to the venue, Jason beside me, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and satisfaction. He squeezed my hand. "Ready?" "I was born ready," I replied. At the venue, every detail matched their Instagram-perfect vision. Tables dressed in cream and blush, soft gold lighting, the smell of roses heavy in the air. Guests arrived, their smiles practiced, their cameras ready. And me? I was invisible. A shadow among the meticulously curated chaos, waiting for the right moment. The subtle changes were almost imperceptible. A small adjustment to the cake, a slight tweak to the centerpiece. Tiny details that would appear flawless at first glance, but would deliver the poetic twist I had envisioned. Jason leaned close. "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure," I said. My heartbeat was steady, even, almost meditative. "This is the moment the world sees them as they really are." He nodded, his calm grounding me. "Then let's watch it unfold." The event began. Isla was radiant, the center of attention. Tyler's smile was polished, professional, empty as ever. The family beamed, convinced they were in control. Champagne glasses clinked, conversations flowed, and I remained on the sidelines, my calm exterior masking the anticipation building in my chest. And then, the first sign, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in the centerpiece. A delicate floral arrangement that I had quietly adjusted began to wobble. No one noticed at first, except me. I sipped my drink, glancing at Jason, who gave me a subtle nod. Timing was everything. The moment would come, and when it did, every eye in the room would see it. Not just a mistake, not just chaos, but the undeniable proof that perfection could be a lie. As the evening progressed, I could feel the tension building. Guests filmed, photographed, and complimented every detail. Isla's eyes sparkled with pride. Tyler's mask of indifference remained. And then, the cake arrived. A 7-tier masterpiece, shimmering under the spotlight, ivory and gold, delicate sugar roses cascading down each level, the culmination of months of planning, the crown jewel of the family's social media fantasy. And I smiled quietly, knowing exactly what would happen next. Because what seemed perfect was about to unravel. The ballroom shimmered under soft golden light, each crystal chandelier throwing fragmented rainbows across the polished floors. Guests chatted, cameras clicked, and Isla floated among them like she had stepped out of a magazine cover. Tyler's smile was practiced, a perfectly straight line, but his eyes flickered with unease. He didn't fully trust the perfection either. I leaned back against a pillar, Jason by my side, sipping a glass of champagne. Every detail of the wedding, the tables, the flowers, the music, was flawless. On the surface, it was exactly what they wanted. And yet beneath that veneer, the stage was set for the unexpected. The moment came when the cake rolled out, wheeled by two tuxedoed servers. 7 tiers of ivory perfection, gold filigree, and sugar roses, the initials I and T embossed in delicate pearls. Gasps of admiration swept through the crowd. Cameras were raised. Phones streamed live. The family was ready to bask in their fantasy. And then, the subtle twist I had orchestrated, a minor adjustment I had quietly made weeks earlier, began to take effect. A crack appeared along the middle tier, almost imperceptible at first. Isla gasped. Tyler's smile faltered. I sat quietly, glass in hand, watching their shock grow. Boom! The top tier collapsed sideways, and from within the cake emerged a figure no one expected. A clown. Not just any clown, but one in a wedding dress. Full veil, red nose, and white gloves, lipstick smeared into a too-wide grin. On their chest, a laminated sign read, Miss Perfect. The room went silent. A few guests laughed nervously. Others stared, mouths open. Isla's hands flew to her face, her carefully curated composure shattered. Tyler looked helpless, stepping back. My parents' smiles froze, and for the first time, the illusion of control cracked. The clown, arms wide like a performer on Broadway, bowed deeply and released a burst of white feathers into the air. From the bouquet attached to the costume came a ribbon that read, You ordered perfection. We delivered. Ila's mouth hung open like a broken hinge. She whispered almost inaudibly, What? What is this? The clown winked at the nearest camera, whispered a cheeky farewell, and disappeared into the fog of dry ice. Social media feeds erupted instantly. Phones recorded everything. Hashtags were born within minutes. Hashtag clown cake, trending by nightfall. Jason chuckled softly, resting a hand on my shoulder. You're a genius, he whispered. I clinked my glass against his. Happy wedding day, Isla, I murmured, letting the satisfaction settle like a slow, burning fire. The aftermath was almost instantaneous. My phone lit up with 143 missed calls, moments of panic, anger, and disbelief, cascading in notifications. Messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, voicemails from my mother, and texts that demanded answers. I didn't respond. I sat quietly with Jason, watching the world burn in miniature on my screen. By the next morning, the wedding chaos had gone viral. Videos, remixes, and memes circulated online. Clips of the clown's grand reveal flooded social media. Ela deleted her accounts. Tyler retreated, overwhelmed. And my parents? Speechless, unable to control the narrative that was no longer theirs. Jason and I finally sat down to a quiet breakfast, letting the absurdity of it all wash over us. You really did it, he said softly. I did what had to be done, I replied, sipping my coffee. Not for revenge, for truth. For the first time, I felt what freedom might taste like, not just stepping away from the family's expectations, but reclaiming my voice, my resources, and my power. The world outside continued its predictable rhythm, oblivious to the quiet revolution I had orchestrated from a corner of the ballroom. And yet inside, for once, I felt unshakable, untouchable, alive. By the day after the wedding, silence reigned. Too perfect, too unnatural. Sunlight spilled into our apartment, but the world felt different now, charged, as if the air itself had shifted. My phone buzzed relentlessly, 143 missed calls, group messages dripping with panic and outrage. Mom, Isla, Tyler, even Aunt Martha, who once criticized my thrift, now texted in disbelief. I handed the phone to Jason. He read 3 texts, then passed it back. Wow, he said softly. You really broke them. I didn't break them, I said. I revealed them. That afternoon, there was an aggressive knock at the door. Mom barged in, sunglasses on, trying to appear untouchable, with Dad trailing behind, looking weary. You ruined your sister's wedding, Mom hissed. She ruined my marriage first, I said evenly. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. It's just one message, one sentence. Silence, I countered. You humiliated Jason, and you humiliated me. Dad hesitated, conflicted. I didn't flinch. "You're no longer part of this family," Mom spat as she stormed out. Dad followed quietly. For the first time in my life, I felt a weight lift. A boundary had been drawn, clearly and unshakably. By Monday, the clown cake video had 2.3 million views on TikTok. By Tuesday, remixes circulated. By Wednesday, media outlets covered the story. Isla disappeared from social media. Tyler left town. And I? I finally slept through the night without anxiety clawing at my chest. But the final twist came later that week. Jason called me urgently. "Camila, come home, now." He held a manila envelope, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, bold and unflinching. Attached, a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop. Screenshots, bank transfers, messages, audio recordings, all evidence that Isla's deception ran deeper than anyone knew. She had secretly funded a second wedding with another man, our cousin Jordan, all while maintaining her flawless public wedding narrative with Tyler. The pieces fell into place. My clown cake wasn't just a statement, it was a catalyst, a revelation. Jason and I debated what to do. Should we confront Jordan? Should we send this to Tyler? I smiled. "No," I said. "We deliver it," with a bow. We found Jordan at the gym, mid-punch on a heavy bag. I handed him the red folder. His eyes widened as he scanned the documents. Photos of Isla in his apartment, her leg half exposed, wine glass in hand, hands poised to receive his payments. Audio clips revealed promises, lies, manipulation. "She's a black hole," Jordan whispered. "She eats good things and spits out lies." I nodded, quietly satisfied. Justice had been served, not cruelly, not with malice, but inevitably. That night, Jason and I cooked pasta, opened a bottle of wine we had been saving, and laughed freely for the first time in years. The world outside burned with viral clips, trending hashtags, and memes. And inside our apartment, freedom felt like warmth, like sunlight spilling over cold stone. Weeks later, a letter arrived, handwritten in Ila's trembling script. "You were always better than me. That's why I hated you. You never wanted anything from anyone, just to be left alone. We couldn't even give you that. You won. I hope it was worth it." I framed it, not out of pride, but as a reminder. Never again would I allow anyone to exploit my generosity, my patience, or my love. 2 months later, Jason and I were flying to Portugal, our first real vacation. No obligations, no family drama, no fake invitations. Just us, the open sky, and the knowledge that the life we wanted was ours to claim. We toasted every Friday, a ritual now. He raised his glass. "To Miss Perfect." I clinked mine. "Long may she be off the throne." And for the first time, truly, I felt free.